Hello, everybody. Welcome to our show. I'm very excited to talk to you about the workforce for women of a certain age. Uh, I want to first introduce you to my co-hosts, Sonia and Sharita. And today we have two very special guests from very successful corporate America professionals, Sharita and Shelly. I'm sorry, Shelly and Giselle. Say hello to Shelly and Giselle.
Hello.
The reason why I want to have this show is because I know that as we progress in our careers, we don't really think about what it's like to still be relevant in the workplace at a certain age, while our HR departments are focused on hiring the young genius engineers or whatever the case may be. I felt like maybe we're in a stage of our life where we're becoming more invisible in corporate America. And I think that's an unfortunate place to be in. So I wanted to gather some women to talk about what that's like. What's it like being a woman of a certain age in corporate America today? And what are some of the things that we can do to challenge some of those things that are happening to us as we continue on with our careers? So first of all, I want to ask Giselle and Shelly, please give us the journey of your career. How did you end up to where you are today, and what that looks like for you today, and just kind of give us a brief overview of that journey. Shelly, you want to go first? Shelly, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, Shelly. Giselle, you want to go ahead while she figures out her volume?
Sure, absolutely. My story is a little different. It was more of a roller coaster. I would say it was a circus the last 10 years, unfortunately. Part of that, I had a desire at graduating from college. I would call it a career story. Started off relocating, all excited to be in the sales and reading. I have a marketing degree. Found a passion working in corporate America with a company for over 20 years, actually over 22 years. And then they decided to close the doors and gave us 30 days notice. So now I also could tell you that I was already at a mature age, and to be able to start from scratch, basically with my career, because companies just did not see me as a young entry level, very eager to relocate, because I had a family at the time as well. So that was a little difficult. However, I will say I did every job within that career path, from entry level to first line management, to managing a sales organization, managing training organizations, etc. And then a halt came. So it took me a couple years to lick my wounds and kind of rebrand myself. And then from there, it became more of a, what do I want to bring to the table after that? And that is truly one of the challenges, is because I lost something in those 2 years, I lost a little something because I don't think I was as sharp. I missed some of the digital age of even applying to jobs. It was a true challenge, but I can honestly tell you, it feels rewarding now, because I think I'm a new me, and I'm now working in a role that I enjoy every day. And I think that's really, sometimes we have to get to that point. Women of a certain age, you just get to a point where, you know what, you got to be happy where you are. And that's my story.
You mentioned something that was really interesting about being with a company for 20 something years, and then all of a sudden, they shut their doors. I've heard women talk about, they've been with companies forever, and then all of a sudden they're faced with layoffs. So your situation is a little bit different, but the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, you're without a job with this 20 something year background, and competing now with 20-something-year-olds and early 30-year-olds. What was that journey like, trying to pit yourself against the young, eager, energetic, young geniuses that they claim to be? What was that like?
So, besides the fact that I thought that I had what it took to get hired immediately after that layoff, so untrue, because of the fact that when you are in transition, companies do not accept your years of service after a certain age. It is more of you're going to be too expensive. And so we're going to give you an entry level salary regardless of your experience. And so what I did eventually was join networking groups. And I had to learn to keep myself busy. And that's exactly what I did. I went to professional social hours. I volunteered at the school. I actually had to take a step back, and I spent some time with my family. And then it was time to start a path. And even though you can write a list of the pros and cons of what you want to do, it doesn't mean you're still not hurting, because my feelings were very hurt. They really were. When I was let go, or when the whole department was let go, it was tough. It was absolutely tough. But at this point, I would pride myself on some good makeup and some cute clothes, and I think I can hang with some of those young girls.
There you go. Exactly.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, it looks like Shelly has exited the chat. There she is.
Sorry about that. Can you all hear me now?
Shelly, are you with
There
us?
we go. Yay.
Yes.
She's back.
All right, Shelly, you could give us your journey now.
Well, thank you. And sorry for the technical problems. I think that kind of speaks to a lot of what we have to deal with sometimes in our corporate America type roles that we have. But the field that I'm in, I've been in financial services for over 20 years. And so the journey for me and where I am at this point, I feel like I have been able to accomplish quite a bit, in the capacity that I'm in. But at times I do feel that you can clearly see the shift, so you reach, kind of what you feel is almost a plateau, and, and kind of your skill set and what you have to offer with the different roles that you're in. But you see kind of this new wave of individuals that are being sought after, they're coming in, salaries are higher, and so those are all of the things that you see taking place around you. So for me, it's been a constant battle of trying to just figure out, how do I continue to see myself fitting in, to this environment? How can I keep adding value? And then also not compromising myself, and kind of what's important to me. Not compromising the time that I'm able to, not just give to work, but also to my family. So those are some of the big things that, I have tried to deal with and have struggled with at some points, if I'm being honest, over the years. But you have to make some of those decisions. And once you, set some goals on where you see yourself and how you want to continue to progress, it's a constant balancing act. And it's a constant, kind of figuring out, what do I need to prioritize at this point in my life, so that I can be successful, with my career. But at the same time, I'm still, there for my family, and they're, kind of leading in that regard as well.
That's interesting. So you both kind of alluded to the fact that you've had to reinvent yourself, right? Especially to try to keep up with today's culture and, today's technology. You've got to find a niche and understand or add value and make sure everybody understands the value that you add. But reinventing yourself is a very purposeful act. What specifically did you guys do I know Giselle says she rebranded herself. And Shelly, you said you continuing to learn and develop yourself. What specific things do you do to try to, stay relevant and reinvent yourself and brand yourself as somebody who's value added?
So, what's interesting, we oftentimes stay within our own paradigm of social circles. I began to branch out. Now, some of them were probably a risk, but you learn from so many others. You really, really can. And I find it very interesting because think about it, how we have to represent ourselves and be very careful with what we say and the titles we give people. I mean, this is all part of the new generation, and being able to practice that, because that's the only way it's going to become natural, is to practice it. So you have to find yourself in the right setting to be able to practice it on a regular basis, so you don't slip up and say the wrong thing. I mean, it's just the truth today.
Yeah.
Everything's so sensitive. And although you would think women of a certain age in the workplace would be a sensitive area there in the workplace with HR, it's lost that level of sensitivity. Remember, we used to be the protective workforce.
Yeah.
We really were. And it's migrated. And so oftentimes, I agree with Shelley, you got to spend more time learning as well, because you'll lose your value. You'll lose your value so quickly. You really will.
The interesting thing is, because we were joking earlier, I equate everything to menopause, and part of being of a certain age, to me, one of the symptoms of that is brain fog, and a lot of women struggle with the inability at a certain age to grasp new concepts, especially as they relate to technology. And so you're having to go through, explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old. Don't you just erase all your technical jargon and talk to me like I'm an ignoramus. I won't be offended. But then you're actually competing with the person that just graduated from school, who grew up with technology and eats and sleeps and lives it, and can run circles around you. And so how do you stay relevant? I understand, like, keeping on top of things or whatever. I love YouTube, and to me, that's I'd rather go to YouTube University than office sponsored training, because I'm going to have to go to YouTube University when I leave the training anyway. But what do you guys do to, like, really, if you're not experiencing brain fog, then, and if you're still able to grasp things really quickly, that's great. But how do you keep up and compete with a 20-year-old, a 22-year-old, or however old you are when you graduate?
So you want to go first?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. But one of the things that I try to do is to really kind of self-reflect and understand what my strengths are. So my whole thing is, like, at this point, I'm not trying to, like, learn, like, new topics. It's not that I'm not continuing to learn, but I'm not gonna, be some type of developer or something like that if that's what the role is called for. But I know what I'm strong in, and I know what I bring to the table. And so that's what I focus my efforts on. And I align myself with positions and roles where I can demonstrate those strengths. And so that has worked well for me over the years. It's, kind of like that thing, stay in your lane or know your lane. That's a part of it for me. Another piece of that is also not standing in your way, because I think a lot of times we stand in our own way because we think we don't have the skill, or we think we may not be capable, of taking on something new. And we have to kind of get outside of that also, so while I recognize what my strengths are, and that's what I play to, I also know that I'm very capable. And if there is something that I want to step out and do differently, I just have to really, dedicate the time and effort to pour into it so that I can quickly be able to get up to speed on whatever that new topic is. So it's kind of like a twofold kind of thing for me. And that's how I've been able to approach it over the years.
Sounds good.
I love that. But mine's a little more simple. I go ahead and ask them, show me how to do that. I absolutely do, because
That's
you know what?
excellent.
I do. And it's just something that I can show you as well. So I often try to admit the fact that, oh my goodness, well, you've got that down. Can you show me how you were able to do that pivot table? To this day, that's still a struggle for me, but I would still like to learn Excel. Okay. And it's easier if you have, the young person who just got out of college, go ahead and show that to me, because they're going to know the latest and the greatest. So I will thank them for their expertise and take that knowledge and put it in my role and move on.
I think that is so, that's you. I mean, you really did hit the nail on the head. That
Yeah.
is excellent. And
Yep.
I think instead of like drawing a line in the sand and feeling threatened by these new, you really have to embrace them and
Yeah.
really bring them into the fold. I really think that, I was talking with my boss yesterday, and we were talking about like people of a certain age in the workplace versus the young. They will sit in the cubicles and they'll just, they'll have this banter over the cubicles, and they'll be talking. Oh, so and so. You see, there's a job posting. This because they post. You see, there's a job posting. They're paying. They're paying this person $50,000 to answer the phone. Well, I'm making 46. I'm gonna apply for this position, and then I'm just like, we're like we would never talk about our
We don't
salary.
talk about money.
We would these are conversations that we never have, but they are so open. Not
Yep.
only do they talk about, they strategize about money as it pertains to work and how to get more, but they also collaborate a lot with work. They talk a lot to each other. How do you do this? How do you do this? But we're like, oh, we're here with all this institutional knowledge. I've got 30 years experience or whatever. I wish I would ask this child. I could have this my grandkid. I have a grandkid older than that. I'm not talking to this kid. Who does he think he is coming in here? Yes, you better ask that young person, because otherwise you will never be pivoting. Your tables will be locked on.
That is
You know
true.
what? That's very legitimate, and I like to call that cross generational mentorship. They have as much to teach us as we do them.
Yes.
And we have to be open to learning from them. And I like what you said about how they're open, talking about, the money they make or whatever. And they're very willing to go and demand a raise. Whereas our generation is like, I'm going to work harder, and they're going to see my performance, and they're going to give me a raise. And no.
And they do. How much did they pay you to come in here? $3.99 an hour. What? They paid me $4. You should go ask for another penny. I'm going right downstairs right now. Yes,
They do that.
They are
conversations they have.
a lot more free, lot more. They have a lot more confidence. So they're like, well, if I don't do it here, I'll just go find me another job.
In that part.
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
we'll just
because our generation, like Giselle was at her company for 20 something years. Shelly's been at her company for 20 something years. I've been at my company for a very long time. The thing is, that's unusual these days.
Yeah.
Nobody stays that long at a company anymore. So and that's what makes it even harder, because we have been so loyal to these companies. We've given them everything. Sometimes we ignore our family life in order to support the needs of the company. And then they decide, oh, we don't need you anymore. Goodbye. And it's like, and I think that Gen Zs or millennials, they see that and they are like, okay, well, you won't give me that extra penny. I know who will, and I'm out. And so we would never think that. We're like, oh no, I have so much work to do. The company's relying on me.
Yep.
It's a different world.
It is.
Have you guys experienced the well, it's not my phrase, but what is referred to as the brain drain? So when you've been with a company for a number of years and you feel like you feel like they feel it's time to put you out to pasture. But before you go, we want to drain you of everything we don't know that so we're gonna pair little Johnny up with you.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
you know so
Like, no, you're not.
could you write this procedural manual?
Nope.
Could you step by step explain what you do every day? Have you experienced that? And how do you deal with that? Because I still haven't written that manual.
Probably why you're still there.
Sounds like that was very strategic of you, Sonia.
Don't give it to him, Sonia. Don't give it to him.
I hope my boss never finds this podcast.
Yeah, don't give it to him. That's true. It's funny. That you said that, but something like that happened to me many years ago. So it didn't even have anything to do with my age. It had more to do with me being a female. So they brought this guy in, and because he has a family. I was single at the time, but because he had a family, so we need you just to help him and let him shadow you. I'm like, no, sir. If you're gonna fire me, you better fire me now, because I'm taking it all with me. And so that's true. But when that starts to happen, you kind of feel like something's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll just be like, so how much time you have left? When you work in government too, you can go, so, and then I've already stayed longer than I ever said I was going to stay. So it's like, so, you're planning your retirement party soon? I'm like, they'll just come out and so what? And then they were never so ballsy to try this with me, but there's a guy now let me just say this. I have never heard of a retention loan, and I've been there 32 years. I have never heard of not a retention loan, a retention raise.
Oh.
So, this is because this is an employee's market. These employees, they're hiring these young people, and they will accept your offer and come to the job and flip their laptop open and sit there surfing, updating their LinkedIn and looking for new job offers. They're setting up interviews while HR hasn't even processed their paperwork. I've seen people leave the job before they've gotten their first paycheck. Because they're like, but what's the matter? Oh, I got a better offer. I'm like, I gotta go. There's no loyalty here. So you're not going to get people. They don't care about your pension and whatever. Most people don't even give pensions.
I guess there is no pension. Yeah.
So they're not loyal. But so in response to all of these people, these young people leaving every 5 minutes, they came up with this idea about and I was just hearing buzz about it. And I'm like, well, why the hell isn't anybody trying to give me any retention money?
Because they already got you. You're already
trying to retain me.
You're already retained.
So this guy was.
It's okay. I didn't get one either. I gave them, but I didn't get any.
This guy they told this guy in his face, another guy, they told him in his face, you too old for retention. I said,
no.
Now I'm like, I know that is an HR no. Did you tell this man he is too old for I'm just glad they didn't say it to a woman, because that would have been a double.
That's discrimination. Problem.
Yes, gender. Right. There's all kinds of laws on the books about that.
Yes.
That's called ageism.
Yes. There's a bunch of isms these days.
But can you, because I guess they feel like you here 32 years. If you wanted to leave, you could have, you would have left. I don't think there's any threat of us, losing you. Obviously you're going to want to die here at your desk. So we don't have to pay to retain you. You're not trying to go anywhere.
Again, very strategic, Sonia. It goes both ways.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at my job, they offer signing bonuses. If you accept our job, we'll give you a $10,000 signing bonus. I'm
But
not
And then
don't
you
lying.
have to stay
but
how
don't they
long?
wait like
And they
3
make you
months?
stay for 2 years.
You have to stay a certain amount of
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
and if you don't, you have to pay it back. But
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, I can see that because really, they tend to not stay past 3 years.
Wow.
Whereas our age group, we are committed and loyal. And I don't know if that's gonna be if that's kind of, you know, a bad thing. You know, I don't know because I haven't had to look for another job, but the industry that I'm in, we face lots of layoffs, right? And I never know if I'm going to be affected by the layoff. And the thought of applying to a job, interviewing for a job, has got me like totally terrified. I don't even know how to do it. Like, you can't just write a beautiful little resume anymore and walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm hiring." You know, that it doesn't work that way anymore.
Nope.
As a matter of
That's
fact, I
right.
was reading where resumes, they can tell the age of an applicant based on the resume style that they use.
Wow.
And if
Wow.
it looks like
I
an
can believe
older
that.
person did it, next.
If you're an older person, you should definitely go ahead, come off a few bucks, and have your resume done
Professionally done.
professionally. It's so worth it. I've seen so many people where it's made such a big difference. And you know, and some of those dead giveaways is I graduated summa magna philosophical cum laude to the third power in 1967. And I've been a member of Omega Sapphire Fraternity Incorporated since it founded back in 1882. No, you don't have to put dates. You don't have to put dates. You don't have to put when you graduated. You don't have to put I went to high school at, you know, and I see these things on resumes. I don't care when you graduate.
Today you see that?
Yeah, people are crazy. And what they're always okay. So we interestingly, we hire a lot of retired police officers. So they're always people of a certain age. But wow, like really, who did your resume? Did your mommy do your resume? Because you know they usually do their 20 years and they're 40, so they're not that old. They're not that old. But it's like, who did your resume? You're putting when you graduated high school, and you can always, you know, do the math and calculate somebody's and you don't have to put that you worked at you know, Shake Shack you know, when it first opened. I mean, you know, I can't even think of anything that would be old and dating. I worked for Roy Rogers. That was my like first job back in you know, in the 80s or the whatever. But people put that on their resume. They put every job they've ever had. We don't need to know what you've been doing for 20 years if it's going to give your age away.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that what's more important than a beautiful resume is, and I think Giselle mentioned this, is networking.
Yeah.
Because all of the high level type positions, they're not applying through monster.com. They get those jobs because of who they know. And
Wait a
so
minute. Is monster.com still around? See, I think you just called your age out.
I think Indeed is the little thing that
oh my God.
you sure just
Is
told on yourself.
Is monster.com still it's not anymore?
It probably
I don't
is, but it's
know.
probably not as relevant
Oh.
anymore. I think everything is LinkedIn now.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I think that networking is a really important part of the job finding process, because I know for, you know, where I work, most of the executive levels, they never filled out an application. They were kind of appointed their position because of all the schmoozing they've done, you know, the dinners. Those things are exhausting, but they're quite necessary. And even in the positions that we have now, I have to go and have dinner with my boss. I have to go and have dinner with my boss's boss. I have to do these things. And it's just part of, keeping yourself in the game.
Mhm.
And a lot of people our age, like, oh, God, I don't have time for that, child. I'm tired. My
Yeah,
feet hurt. But it's something
that's
that you have to
exactly how
do.
I feel.
It's something that you have to do if you do want to stay in the game. If you're not quite ready, like Sonia's retired about 67 times, but if you're not quite ready to retire, you need to continue to make yourself relevant and stay in the game. And some of the things that you have to do, they're not quite enjoyable. Although I happen to enjoy dinner with my boss, but a lot of times those aren't the most fun things to do, but they're pretty, they're required. And networking is hard. I know that Giselle belongs to a sales organization that, they meet quite frequently.
What is it?
Those relationships that you build, you can always pull on those, but you have to be genuine in those relationships. Giselle, have you made any kind of inroads with that organization? Have you seen any kind of successes with those relationships?
So not professionally per se, as far as seeking or being placed with a job. However, my second job after the transition, or say my first job after the big layoff, was through that network. Believe it or not, it actually was. So that was great. But I also had that acquaintance before joining the organization. But I will tell you what it did do. It allowed me to brush up on my interviewing skills when they would have career fairs. It allowed
Mm.
me to get my name out there and kind of rehearse what my answers were. And I say rehearse because could there be something in there that distracted the interviewer, from actually providing the offer? And then there was also the fact that I'm learning from some of the seminars they're having, some of these same topics of how do you build on the brand that you've established? How do you meet the requirements today in the workforce? So I would say there's been an advantage there. And then I also would say they've had some really great parties. You got to have fun too. Right.
That is important.
You
Very.
really have to have fun too. You really, really do.
Yes. And I
I
mean,
think people should really practice the interviewing skills. You'd be amazed if you've been on a job 20 years and you haven't gone on an interview. It is so different. I about 6 years ago, I almost took another job, and that interview, I don't even know how I got an offer because I was floored. Number one, I'm used to somebody, they recommend you for the job, and you're kind of a shoe in. Um, and I knew somebody recommended me for this job, but I still had to go through the process, and I didn't know what to expect. I thought I was just going to go and it was just going to be an informal, hey, show up, just, do the things, let's do the paperwork and get it done. I wasn't prepared. There was a panel.
Yep.
oh,
Panel.
I had never,
Yep.
this is the worst.
I had never been
Yep.
interviewed by a panel. And on the panel were actually people of all, different levels in that department, including people that were going to be reporting to me.
Wow.
They were asking me questions, and then I knew because the person that was recommending me for the position was the person that had the position previously. So I was, asking her who the people were when they said, and this is so and so, I was like, won't she be working for me? What is she asking me about? She was asking me some stuff. I was like, girl, that is not your business. But I had to pull it together. And then it was a process that I had never been exposed to before. And I hear it's very common. So, I think that even if you're not looking for a job, you should probably practice applying for some and interviewing for shits and giggles.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree. One of the things that
oh,
I've actually applied to a couple of jobs on LinkedIn, and it takes you to this thing called Workday, and
Those are the HR systems.
and on that application, you are required to put your graduation year. You're required to put certain identifying information that I kind of was like, all right, this is the first level of weeding out,
It
right?
sure is.
So that's why I was like, you know what, it's not for me. I'm just gonna die here. But that's unfortunate that that's the thing that we have to be aware of. And then, if we happen to get the interview, then we have to kill the interview. We have to like really, really set ourselves apart from everybody else. And that's another, because typically when we go into an interview, they already have thoughts about you, right? And stereotypically, we're not supposed to be able to follow technology. We're supposed to be set in our ways. We're supposed to not be able to accept change. So these are the things that we're up against before we even open our mouths. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but in my day-to-day, I do witness those stereotypical things in other people, but I don't like to be affiliated with that because I purposely try to avoid that by staying on top of going to YouTube University, talking to the younger people. But do you guys ever experience, like, I don't know, stereotypical, are they applying that to you in your role or your person, especially because I can see them like, oh, here she comes again asking about pivot tables. Is that something that you kind of feel? I don't know. I sometimes get an energy about some things when I approach a younger person, like she's not going to get it. I'm talking to be patronizing, like, do you guys ever get that?
I know for a
Well,
fact.
for me,
Yes. Go ahead, Shelby.
sorry, I was just going to say that, like with the company that I'm with, we have to apply. So even if there's a new role, that you're interested in, you have to apply for it. Even if you're an internal person, and you have to go through all of the same interviews that even if someone were coming from the outside would have to do. So depending on what level the role is, you can go through, 4 or 5 different interviews. So what I found is that, when I have gone through that process, to the point that was made before, you're out of practice. You're not used to going in and, and having to field all these different types of questions. And so, it can be a little intimidating thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to go through this whole interview process for a role that you're capable of, you're a good fit for it. You still have to go through the process. They bring in external candidates. So it's always that type of competition that exists with it. I haven't had situations where I feel like they're really imposing like age, type of discrimination or anything like that. But you definitely feel kind of the competitive nature that exists around everything, every role, every opportunity that comes up. You're being assessed against not just your peers internally, but people competition that exists for anything that you're going for.
And I can honestly say I have not, I don't think I've annoyed anyone enough per se, because I try to stroke. So the annoyed is a little softer, when I'm asking these questions, or a perfect example, not for annoyance, because I would say in my role, there are a lot of us that are mature in some aspect. And so what's the opposite for me is that at my age, in my role, I am the only person at my level that did not grow up in the company. So it's more of an expectation. What do you mean you don't know? I mean, that's what my challenges are. Do I fit in or not? Because they've all been there 30 years, 25 years, 40 years for some. So that's interesting. So what I get a kick out of is when we're on these Zoom calls or these Teams calls, and there's a chart up there, and they're like, well, can you make it bigger? Well, can you make it bigger? Can you make it bigger? We're all like this.
Wow.
That's when okay, we're the same.
Yep. Yep. That is true.
Yes. We've
Yep.
all experienced that. I mean, even on this little podcast,
These
we're just
glasses
like,
on.
What does it say?
I know.
Oh my God, that was me. Like the first.
I know. I know.
So I get equal playing field when you have to make the screen and the print bigger. That's what I say.
Well,
Yep.
that's a
I
very
know
optimal
that
experience.
the young people at my job, I know for a fact that they talk about me behind my back. When I will,
Oh,
because I'm just telling you, I will ask the same, and I know I'm doing it. I will ask, and sometimes I'll be like, let me write it down so that I don't have to ask how to do this again, because I just asked them how to do it last week. And 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 then sometimes I'll just be like, I'm going to ask you this again next week, right? I'm not really paying attention, right? But I'm sure
wow.
they're like, oh my God, like here she comes again with the same. I do try to balance it because I try to number one, I say it's a quid pro quo. I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, help me with the same thing over and over again. But I'm also going to give you, 30 years of experience. I'm going to teach you how to, how to navigate executives, all levels of how to interface, how to get what you want in this particular, who to contact here, because where to go to get this, and that sort of thing. So I feel like it's an equal partnership. Yes, you are more efficient at doing this. What it will take me 35 minutes to an hour to do, you're going to do it in 5 to 10 minutes, and that's going to be best for our team. But I'm also going to I'm going to save you the time of going through 70,000 employees, which we have, and I'm going to tell you exactly who to call, and that's the person that's going to get you what you want. So it's balanced that way. But I know they talk about me like, oh my God, this, and they call me some things to my face that really make me feel a little
no.
like, okay, here comes the fossil, or I don't know, but I can't even think of anything right now. But I have heard it in a lighthearted.
Oh, Lord.
I have a good sense of humor.
Yeah. That helps. That does help.
Yes.
Well, so I feel like the culture versus age has been the lines are blurred, right? Because culturally speaking, millennials and Gen Zers, they look at things in a much more modern way. Like they are microwave type people. We're more crock pot people. Like we want to understand every aspect and, let's take a look, let's analyze it. Whereas they're just ready to go full
Jump
speed
right
ahead.
in it. Yep.
And so I think that it's very difficult for us as we age to just, zoom past all the things that there you go, Shelley. Zoom past the things that we normally would want to analyze and really, really study and understand. But today's culture is a very, very convenient culture. Like it's very quick, fast, just like technology changes overnight. You wake up and your phone is out of date. So I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to navigate that because even at my job, we are a technology company and we're trying to stay on top of change and manage change and staying, on top of all of our procedures and policies and stuff like that. So the old saying, well, we've always done it this way, just won't fly today. But
nobody wants to hear that.
Nope.
But that's where we are, right? And so I feel like it's a mindset that we have to modernize the way we think in order to stay culturally, in step with what's going on today. And that's hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me until I recognized these people ain't gonna wait for me to sit up here and analyze stuff and look at stuff and figure it out and go, they're not gonna wait. So we've got to really change our mindset and understand that times are moving, time keeps on slipping into the future, and we have to really keep up. And I think that's, everything that we talked about, like, go ahead.
On that note, it does remind me of what this new Gen Z or whatever we're calling them, what they are deficient in, and that is the ability to analyze anything. Now they can make a chart for you, they can pivot the table for you in 5 minutes, but can they extract all of the information from these various large data sets that they've created and synthesize that information in a way that makes sense, where the stakeholder can make a decision? No, I ask for stats, and what do I get? Spreadsheets that mean nothing. So like you've done it, and I used to be so amazed at, like, oh my God, look how fast they have produced this. And it was intimidating. But when I would ask them, what does this mean?
Right.
To this day, and when I do evaluations, I'm like, you need to work on this. This is great, but you need to work on this. And so I do feel like my value, I hold my value, because yes, you can get somebody to make you a chart in 5 minutes, but you're still gonna have to spend 2 hours extracting what you need from that chart. So and I think that they're figuring that out. And in my company, they have called back so many people out of retirement to come back as consultants. So I will say, I would say that is one thing, because yes, you're paying. And it's funny, Shelley mentioned that, and I guess because you're in finance, that that people are coming in with these large salaries. But when you work in government, they want to get you, they feel like, why am I paying you six figures when I can pay this person right out of college to do things in 5 minutes and pay him $50,000.
But then they find out really quickly.
And then so they say, bye, person that's been here 20 years. Goodbye, good riddance. And then they're like, okay, Quicksilver, let's get it done. And Quicksilver's like, here you go. They're like, oh yes, we just saved ourselves with this acquisition. And then they were like, what the fuck is this?
Exactly.
And he's like, well, I don't know. I did what you told me to do. Okay, but can you tell me some more? No, I can't.
Yep. And then what do they do? Then they call you back.
Okay, so peace out.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, I'm sorry about giving you that party while I was giving you the boot, but can you come back?
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess I can come back, and it's going to cost you more.
Yeah,
that's true. Like that reminds me of a story. My dad was a chemical engineer.
Yes, he was.
And he retired. He couldn't wait to retire. He was so excited because his whole life was golfing. Yes. And about a month after he retired, they called him and they said, these young engineers
don't know nothing.
We don't know what to do with them. Can you come back? He was like, no. They called him 3 more times. And each time
offered him more.
The pay got substantially bigger. And he kept saying no. And they asked him, what would it take for you to come back? He said nothing.
Good for him.
You'll never see me.
That's what they get. They didn't get that brain drain or whatever you called it, Sonia. Yeah, they didn't do that to him. Clearly, it would have probably taken another year to get all that knowledge. And that's what happens.
Yep.
They think they're going to save some money, and they don't save no money. They end up paying more.
It's true.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. They hired a bunch of young engineers, and they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I don't want to knock any young employees getting into the workforce. But I don't want us to be intimidated by their entry into the workforce. I think we need to learn how to work together, be more collaborative, and learn from one another. I think we all agree that that's the key to staying relevant and, reinventing ourselves and rebranding. I never thought about ourselves as a brand. That we should consider rebranding ourselves. because that's all part of it. When the way people see us, it's actually a brand. I never thought about it, but now that I'm saying it out loud, it makes sense. People see us, and it's our brand. We represent who we are as a brand. So
Yeah, but
I
because
think
of
this has
social
been a really
media, you're way more visible, right? More visible
yeah.
than we used to be a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And another point that I want to reiterate is making sure that we network. Networking is so much more than just for job reasons. There are so many things out there that we could, when we come together as a community, we can lean on one another for these resources. You know, it may be, hey, I don't know how to plan for my retirement. Oh, I know so and so. He's an analyst and he does this and he can help this and this and that. You know, so I think networking and building relationships is key for women of our age group. And so I'd like to see that more. And I think that this WOCA style thing that we're doing is part of that. And I want to see it grow. And I think it's really key to being more fulfilled in our life at this stage. So again, I really appreciate this was really fun, informative, and I love hearing about your stories and how you came to this current stage in your life, career wise. But normally, what we do at the end of every show is I ask each co-host, you know, what's the one thing that you would have done differently had you known, you know, today's outcome. Sonia, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So the interesting thing for my life in general, I really, I would never do anything different. So I believe like everything happens in perfect order for a reason. I believe that it's all part of the plan. I'm like one of those people that believes everything was supposed to happen just the way it happened. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. Um, I like where I've ended up career wise. It was completely by accident. Um, I would, you know, one of the things that I really admire about the new generation of workers is the fearlessness that they show. I think I would be more, you know, my plan really was not to stay at this job for 32 years. It was to stay there 2 years and to
30
leave.
plus, 30 years
Because
more.
I was rebranding myself. Oh, when I came, so I said, let me get my foot in the door. And then once I get, 2 years experience in this area, I'm going to start branching out into something else. But it didn't work out that way. But um, I would advocate. I would have advocated for myself a lot more. I would not. I would not accept uh, some of the raises that were given to me, or the promotions that were given to me. Almost like, oh, like thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much for this little money. I would have been like, really? Can we talk about this? And I didn't even know that that was possible then.
Yeah.
When I was, you took whatever they gave you, and now there are so many people that are challenging these things and my jaw's on the ground. I'm like, what? You can do that? I thought you took the little 10% and you shut your mouth and go on and fill your tank up with gas and maybe buy some eggs and call it a day with your promotion money. But I would have did that different. I would have said, what is this?
Right.
Really? What is this? I would have
Yeah.
did that more for sure.
Sharita?
What about you, Sharita?
Well, I'm sitting here listening to you amazing ladies and all of the years that you have loyally put in it at your places of work right now, and I'm like, ooh, I was totally the opposite. I was like, so I probably stayed at my longest job, and one of many, because I was fearless. I'm nope, I'm tired of y'all. Nope, I don't want to do this no more. So probably the longest I ever stayed at one of my positions was when I was in IT, and that was probably 8 years. And I'm 58. So, I did quite a lot. I did IT, I did communications, I did real estate, I did a little bit of everything. But the one thing that I can say, I wish that I knew then, that I know more of now, is I wish I would have just bought more stock or learned more about stock, or just, oh my God, I'd be
Yeah.
retired and rich right now. Some of the places,
Yes.
and I just didn't know enough at the time, or I just didn't take the time to learn. I could have taught myself. I could have learned just like I know now. But it
Yeah.
just wasn't on my radar at the time. So I really
Mhm.
wish that I would have been, invested in a lot more stock in the companies I worked at.
Yeah, that's good. So for me, I think that what I would have done differently, or what I wished I would have done, is what I see my own kids doing. Like they're investing themselves in, like, they're entrepreneurial. Um, they have real jobs, but they also have side hustles that they want to grow. And by the time they're my age, they won't need their real job. This side
Yep.
hustle will take that. And I never had that experience. And I'm like in awe. I really, really admire people who grow that from a young age. Like for me, starting it now, it wouldn't make sense. Well, I guess it would make sense, but it's just
There's still
not
time.
in.
Stop aging yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But
And in
I
this day and age, it can grow really quickly.
that's true. It could go viral.
Yeah, it could go viral. Yeah.
But I do wish that I would have started a business back then and stuck with it, and and I do like Sonia's answer about being brave, having that fearless go get 'em attitude. I too was very appreciative of the little pennies that I would get every year, the little merit raises, oh, well, oh, thank you for this little 3%. Oh my goodness, I'm so forever great. Girl, honey, I wish that I would have been more fearless, but I mean, let us please, if you're watching this, take this as a learning experience so that if you're not yet at a certain age, go for it. Nothing, what's the worst that could happen? They'll say no.
And even if you are at a certain age and you know your value,
Right.
Right.
go for it.
Right.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, we've seen Giselle. She's definitely rebranded herself and she's doing fabulous. So, hey,
Thank you.
so it's never too late.
It's
Thank you.
never
Never
too late.
Nope.
So
Well, I've still got kids to get through school. Remember?
That too. That too.
Oh yeah,
well,
Yep.
that's motivation.
Absolutely.
with that, I want to say thank you to everybody. This is really, really great. I am excited that we're having these conversations. I think that we can talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but we're going to end the show with a nice thank you. And if you're watching us, please be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share and like. And if you are on Facebook, please join our group, WOCA Style, and join the conversation and join our community of good girlfriends. And thank you again.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.